Good evening. Good. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Kate Markert. I'm Executive Director here at Hillwood Estate Museum and Gardens in Washington, D.C. I know that all of you know we're in Washington, D.C. because those of you in the theater are here with me. But we are also very pleased to have probably an equal number of people joining us by Zoom tonight. So we're really thrilled to have you all here and by Zoom. Now, for those of you in the theater, I know you know the next thing I'm going to say. Please make sure all your devices are silenced. So they make such strange noises these days. You know, it's not just a ring anymore. Correct. It won't be mine, I promise you. It won't be. Now, but for those of you at home, sitting in your jammies with no shoes on, you can submit your questions via the Q&A function anytime they cross your mind. And we will try to get to as many of them at the end, both from here and from Zoom, as we can. Now, for those of you in the theater, please wait until the microphone comes around. You see, we have somebody back there with a microphone. And then we'll be able to capture the essence of your brilliant question, and the people on Zoom will be able to hear it as well. So I also want to take this moment to acknowledge those of you who have made the additional commitment to support Hillwood as members of our Legacy Council. It's a very, very thoughtful way to help ensure Hillwood's vibrant future. So our new exhibition, On Time, Giving Form to the Fleeting, opens this Saturday, but those of you who are coming to our Valentine event will have a preview on Thursday night. So please come to that if you haven't already. It's a fabulous event. And there are many people here who can tell you all about it. So you'll be able to come back to Hillwood to travel through time with all of these fantastic decorative arts objects that were created to measure it. The exhibition lecture series begins on March 11th, so please do check out the website. We have some fantastic lectures coming up that you do not want to miss. Our four-part Great Homes and Gardens lecture series continues tonight with Marshall Watson. I'm sure you all know that. Next week, on February 19th, Douglas Hamilton Jr. and Norman Barker will talk about the 100-acre garden in the Maryland countryside that's named Tashyding. It's owned by Doug and his wife, Soni. It's inspired by the Buddhist philosophy. Soni has a very interesting history. She's the daughter of the last king of Sikkim, so technically she is a princess. Although, you know, she went ahead and married Doug and moved to Baltimore County, so what can I say? But the garden is very much inspired by Buddhist philosophy, but of course it's in northern Baltimore County, so it has that flavor as well. So Hillwood, a really lucky group of Hillwood members, were able to come and see it last fall, and you all can tell them how fabulous that it is. Was really great. So, and I do have to say, they wrote a wonderful coffee table book on Tashyding, and I wrote the foreword to it, so of course. Anyway, I've known Doug and Soni for decades, shall we say. Then on February 26th, Lorna Gross will explore how our homes and hosting experiences reflect the life we want to live. I'm very interested in hearing her talk. Now, there are limited virtual and in-person tickets available, so if you haven't already registered, please do that very soon. Tonight, I know we're all excited because it was really hard to get you all settled down. I know we're excited to hear from Marshall Watson. He will take us on a journey from New York to Napa, so the entire country, through the lens of his book, Defining Elegance. Please sign us for a book signing after the lecture. I know many of you have already bought the book. I've seen a lot of green bags around, but I think you may have left a few for sale in the bookshop upstairs. So if you haven't gotten yours already, you can still do that after the lecture. Now, before I hand over the mic, I have to share a little bit about Marshall. He's been telling you all about me upstairs. I've known him a while. Yes. Marshall's a native of Kansas City. He received his Bachelor of Arts from Stanford and founded his design firm, Marshall Watson Interiors, in 1986. Throughout Watson's career, his designs have appeared on the covers of Architectural Digest, Veranda, Traditional Home, Ocean Home, and Hampton Cottages and Gardens, and his interiors have also been explored in publications including House Beautiful, Luke's, and the New York Times Interior Design, as well as many others. He's received Traditional Homes Designer of the Year award and has been featured on Luke's Gold List. He serves on the boards of the Garden Conservancy, the Isabel O'Neill Studio of the Painted Finish, and Fighting Chance. He's currently a member of the Garden Club of East Hampton. He's very proud of that, first man, the Garden Club of East Hampton. I mean, yeah,
There are 4 more now.
well, where his garden, be quiet, I haven't given you the mic yet. His garden is being documented for the archives of the Smithsonian, and he is co-heading the cultivation of a public garden in East Hampton dedicated to the study of 18th century American horticulture. Now, please join me in welcoming Marshall Watson to the podium.
Wow. Well, I hope about 25% of that might be true. Kate, oh my God. First of all, I want to thank Katie McCarthy, who who is a super organizer. And Ricky in the back, I always say is my hero because of the technology. But I really want to thank my good friend Kate Market. She doesn't like this when I do this, who was a high school friend, valedictorian of her class, always the smartest girl in the class, and also then married Bunky, who was Paul's best friend. She's had truly a remarkable career that has led her from the Walters in Baltimore to the Cleveland Art Museum, and finally here to Hillwood, which is truly her home, where all of her well-honed skills came together to bolster attendance, community involvement, and eagerly shepherd this beautiful museum into the 21st century. Hillwood's world-renowned standing and also relevance in the world of the museums truly owes a lot to Kate Market. So I would... She's going to hate me afterwards. So, there it is. Great. Pow. In the Oscar-nominated film Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner is haunted by this rather creepy voice whispering, "Build it, and they will come." Sure, many of you remember that. But of course, this voice is referring to a baseball field. Whereas I take it a step further in reference to our architecture. Because of course, build it, and they will come. But I always say, build it beautiful, and they will come more often. To which I adamantly include, build it beautiful, preserve it, and they will come forever. So in my long and checkered career, I have saved many an apartment and many a house from the wrecking ball by understanding the original architect's vision and deciphering where that vision may have gone wrong. I try to preserve the structure's essence, highlighting its innate beauty and purpose, while functionally reorganizing, reimagining, simplifying, or embellishing where necessary and appropriate. Well, there are many interior designers, I'm certain, who were born with a fabric swatch in one hand and a drafting pencil in the other. I am not, alas, one of these people. My path to this profession was considerably more circuitous, yet no other profession other than interior design could so completely encompass all my passions, culminating in everything up to that point that my life had been about, and ultimately direct me towards my personal pursuit of defining elegance. Well, growing up in Kansas City, art, architecture, gardens, and culture were luckily central to my world. My mother, from a young woman, collected fine antiques and executed elaborate needlepoints. Just look at that petty point there. My father was a constant gardener and rosarian. My Uncle Jack was an accomplished landscape watercolorist. And my Aunt Marie Bell, now 100 years old, a scratch golfer, a fabulous gardener, but also she was a great floral arranger. My grandmother encouraged my ambitions to be an easel painter. Here I am as a young easel painter. While my grandfather allowed me to wander around the great works of art at the Nelson Atkins Gallery in Kansas City across the street from where my grandparents lived. At Stanford University, where I studied literature, design, and engineering, I was exposed to not only M. Forster and Shakespeare, Mies van der Rohe, and Le Corbusier, but also the engineering feats of Eero Saarinen. It was drilled into me never to take the easy way out, but to always question and question until I uncovered solutions with a satisfying depth of complexity and soul. Well, the South Shore of Long Island stands as one of the most remarkable landscapes in the entirety of the mid-Atlantic, dotted with inspiring architecture and washed with a clear, gentle light that, in my opinion, can be found nowhere else on Earth. Sometimes only a cliche will do. It's heaven on earth. Well, my friend had found not only a stucco mansion reminiscent of the great East Hampton cottages of the 1920s, but as an avid gardener, he also found a landscape that had been envisioned as a private park a la Gosford, with grand alleys of silver lindens and bucolic ponds. My friends had truly captured their own fantasy of Eden, just happened to have a house attached. But not such a fantasy was the rot and the deterioration of the entire building. So together with architect Oliver Cope, my partner Mercedes and I invested the floors, the paneling, and the structure with a substantiality, a shimmer, and a sheen that conveys our clients' wishes for an elevated formal elegance with the highest degree of quality and consideration. With a sweeping grand stair, sumptuous velvet carpet, the soaring double-height entry with lacquered paneling establishes the client's vision, and that vision was the urbane sophistication within the rural ideal beyond. The experience culminates in a neoclassic skylight of our design and executed by my artisan neighbors in Springs. There was so much talent out there. And this is something that I always tell people. There is so much talent all around the country. People always say, oh, there are no great craftsmen anymore, but there are. They are there. We need to find them, but we also need to give them great commissions. A Macassar ebony Ruhlman console of my own design is paired with this surprisingly modern silhouette of an 18th century hall porter chair. And interestingly, the single most significant factor impacting the design was neither the location nor the architecture, but rather the client's extensive and exceptional contemporary art holdings. In the living room, the Hashimoto wall sculpture influenced the discrete decorative scheme. Colors repeat, not only in the artwork, but also in a symphony of black and white. Side tables, carpets, fabric, sculptures, and even the pillows, which have this cheeky reference to Jackson Pollock, whose former studio rests quite nearby. Mercedes and I are always interested in the complex position, and we're placed in the complex position of designing rooms in which art has got to be the star, and the furniture, fabrics, and the fixtures must play subordinate roles. But for us, the furniture, the fabrics, and the fixtures, their presence still must be felt. So the very moving Michael Rosner Blue Hills portrait of displaced populations is effectively supported by the extraordinary white ebony credenza, which is a testament to the strength of both. Furnishings thematically wove together the outdoors and the indoors. A sculptural plaster table, which is an imaginary abstraction of whale bones, and this ethereal glass vase reminiscent of jellyfish weave together the magnificent classic garden beyond. And at the most fundamental level, our response was to undergird the art with artful furniture designed in our studio or commissioned by important artisans. The hallway table is constructed from marble fragments of a demolished Kansas City office building that I repurposed with artist Matt Castilla. And the Swedish chandelier by Frida Fellman combines the rectilinear geometry of the architecture with the gentle hues of the garden and the sea. In this house that is to be enjoyed in every season, the richly paneled library serves as the winter room, with highly reflective walnut paneling and Jean-Michel Franck-style club chairs suggestive of a 1940s French men's club. And always designing in deference to the garden as well, we insisted that the doors open to the lovely rose garden beyond, reflected in the lizard skin ceiling. Well, there are no sullen surfaces in this home, obviously. Even the dining room, whose multi-layered blackened aubergine walls and lacquered ceiling mirroring a show-stopping baccarat chandelier, enhances the spirit of depth and resonance that permeates this home. The continental mix of elements draws together the hand-cast concrete table that suggests the surreal tableaus of de Chirico, and whimsical, unexpected, yet really quite comfortable dining chairs constructed from woven seat belts mitigate the formality with a dash of fun and loosens it up. So if the library belongs to the winter, then the sunroom with abundant glazing comes to life in the summer. The woven felt carpet welcomes bare feet, and the dazzling billiard table invites seasonal fun. So this house really stands as a muscular traditional setting that embraces both the art of today and a design that speaks for tomorrow. It opens splendidly and elegantly onto a magnificent park, whose broad alleys and secret gardens beckon the visitor to lose himself. And I will tell you, I frequently do. My career in theater design inspired this love of research, a total immersion in history, costume design, and the aesthetic tradition surrounding a dramatic text so as to better achieve authenticity and context. The love of research has permitted me tremendous design flexibility in my career. These are actually both projects that I have worked on, both the architecture but also the interior design as well. And what could be more delightful to research and totally immerse oneself in than Palm Beach? That northern sensibility dipped in white. A poorly conceived spec house constructed in the 1980s, which was faintly evocative of Palm Beach architecture, instead of being torn down, was masterfully transformed by preservationist architect Mark Marsh into a stunning reinterpretation of Addison Meisner's Venetian Gothic style, which my friends had always longed for. The lady of the house's much adored grandparents lived in Locust Valley, Long Island, but spent winters in Palm Beach, where she visited. Her love of the old school town paralleled her affection for antiques, good architecture, and a highly evolved sense of fun. I love this chandelier. It's so whacked out. And as for the gentleman of the house, he is a champion backgammon player at the Everglades Club. And I do have to tell you why this is a backgammon table that we commissioned from a wonderful artisan down there in West Palm Beach. And of course, I have to say that his family is the Bush family. And of course, Budweiser beer was their bestseller. But down there, memories of his beloved relation, this legendary mid-century Auntie Mame, whose wit, style, and finesse played out for him in Palm Beach's winter playground. So he insisted on this outdoor living room, which is frequently a classic component of Palm Beach residential style, because it was the apotheosis of everything that she and her impact on him represented. In our version, my partner Kate Reed and I transformed an indoor room into his dream outdoor room, with walls finishing in blocks of coral stone, jade lacquered shutters, picky cypress coffered ceilings, and waxed terracotta floors that simply sum up these memories of Palm Beach panache. And the vintage bamboo furniture, practical and unpretentious, is now, as always, the height of chic. So Kate and I agreed that the success of the interiors of this project relied on certain well-researched, inviolate principles, because foremost, the house had to be authentically and unmistakably Palm Beach. Research took us from tropical jazz age panache to 1950s swank, from Moroccan romance to Persian exoticism. And the idea was to preserve a measure of formality typical of the locale's style in its heyday. So in the entry hall, the pattern of pecky cypress ceiling, of which I've mentioned before, but it's that worm-eaten wood so typical of Florida, is replicated in the woven abaca rug, which is a contemporary interpretation of a local style prevalent in the mid-century. I insisted that the portals be installed as these tall arched doors, always raising the eye up, celebrating the height of the ceilings, while the Ming Dynasty porcelain garniture jars on the pedestals punctuate and emphasize the progression of the repetition. I designed a three-dimensional plaster frieze from the trees that are actually in their own forecourt to disguise the doors to the elevator and the AC units. And there's a bit of a story behind this, because I did this drawing in their forecourt, as I said, and I brought it to the plaster artist, and it was about this big. He said, "Marshall, I don't know if I can execute this." So I said, "You can do it." And so I laid out rolls of brown paper on the floor near to this wall in life size, and I drew the entire thing out life size. It was the first time that I've ever done anything that big. And then here is another detail of that right there. So the living room tucks in, and this Anglo-Indian, Asian, and even English cornucopia bathed in oceanic colors into a Venetian Gothic envelope. Beneath Meisner-esque hand-stenciled beams, a Regent settee, Balinese mirror, and coffee table covered in Chinese wallpaper certainly confirms and celebrates Palm Beach style. And speaking of Palm Beach style, at its cheekiest, a stuffed peacock proudly oversees a Japanese screen and sits above a 17th century Italian refectory table. And in the dining room, a superb 18th century wine cooler rests atop another spectacular abaca carpet. We commissioned the mural featuring a palm-lined panorama of the nearby intercoastal waterway. Embroidered English slipcovers sporting a fleur-de-lis motif subtract the room's formality while still leaving the elegance intact. And the light-filled portal to the kitchen features a Moroccan profile with French bistro chairs surrounded by bleached southern cypress cabinetry. You may recognize this picture as this was recently on the cover of Luxe magazine. And our custom-designed Marrakesh tile travels counter to ceiling, once again, raising your eye up to the ceiling, framing the graceful plaster hood. And the breakfast room's bohemian fabric sits easily in a sea of hand-applied bamboo trim. Guaranteed that it's hand-applied because I applied it myself on a ladder. Well, stepping upstairs, we upholstered the walls of the primary bedroom with a Gustavian blue Swedish-inspired embroidery, bringing it all down to a hush, a reference reinforced by the pair of 19th century gilded Swedish mirrors. You see, in our studio, we really shape all of our designs, detail by detail, with no decision too small to be deemed insignificant. Given the demands of working within a highly particular, well-researched historic style, rooted in childhood memories, but interpreted for modern family life, Kate and I carried out what we think is our signature meticulousness, an exercise that we always embrace and we thoroughly enjoy. Because the outcome is a preservation project, but more than that, it's a home with an undeniable overlay of romance, nostalgia, and timelessness. Just the sort of thing that actually keeps you young. Well, there was also my life as a character actor. But I'm afraid here I am a ham with a ketchup bottle. But a character actor is really someone who immerses oneself in the behavior, the psychology, the mannerisms, and the background of another human being, often unrecognizable. Because to be a decent character actor, you must truly be specific in interpretation. You must truly learn to listen and delve deeply into the diversity of the human experience to ultimately understand their journey. Well, my friend's journey had led her to Manhattan. What better place to reinvent herself, for that matter, her life? She sought Manhattan's sophistication with more than a dash of intelligence and glamour, but she also sought a refuge, a safe harbor of calm. She discovered a high floor in a 1929 Park Avenue Emery Roth building with wonderful terraces, an apartment that, like her life, had seen its shares of ups and downs. One of our great strengths as a firm always remains the ability to uncover, recognize, preserve, and revivify the special qualities found in historic structures, furnishings, and objects. And sometimes I would say people's lives. Because knowing this, my friend commissioned us for the entire reclamation of her apartment, and as she always said, a bit of her journey as well. She'd assembled a selection of antique furniture and objects that she had grown to love. She wanted to preserve and sought as her principal goal to combine old and new, celebrating the juxtaposition of her former life and her new future. So my partner, Mercedes Gaines and I invested the entry of this apartment with a measure of Park Avenue splendor. The gleaming marble floors patterned with deco brass inlays, doors and moldings lacquered in equally reflective black French polish. The walls shimmer with a geometric mirror pattern doubling the feel of the space, while exuberant hall lanterns in gilded coffers, the malachite doorknobs, and a lizard leather upholstered entry door greet you elegantly, and all this before you get your galoshes off. The living room opens to polished plaster walls and beams. Marc Chagall hangs above the mantel, whose firebox has been gilded so that the room will always be ablaze. Atop my client's Regency card tables reside expressionistic hammered brass 1970s lamps. We mix the modern glass stools, the amazing Pietro Friedberg hand chair, with the silhouettes of Gian Radice lounge chairs, sculptural lamps to the left that bubble up, and tailored curtains that introduce a pleasing and indeed this essential tension a la Manhattan via a melange of surprisingly compatible but mutually enriching epics. Manhattan's multicultural personality is really stirred up with that coherent chaos of its urban design. That cacophony, so essential, is what makes New York so distinctive, addictive, and unforgettable. This family space does triple duty. First, anchored by a deep olive silk sectional, above which is this remarkable collage resembling an abstract kaleidoscopic library. Second, and close by, the dining area pairs my friend's English Regency rosewood dining table with 1950s Italian brass chairs wearing a sumptuous floral silk velvet. And the third component is the bar. That thick black pipe, which is an unremovable drain dropping God knows what from the apartment upstairs, around which we had to center this entire room, anchors the elegant glass shelves sporting bronze cuffs. We call it steampunk by Cartier. Well, the mosaic wall above the sink and brass cabinetry is dashed with flecks of gold, Gioponti style, while bleached walnut cabinets of the kitchen flank a solid brass stove hood. And here's another view. Refuge, and a safe harbor of calm suffuses the bedrooms. For my fashion-forward friend, a feminine bedroom in shades of dusted pink. Because you'll note the compatibility between the contemporary burled walnut and brass side tables and the 1830s Empire dresser, composed of exactly the same materials, only 100 years apart. These are subtle links, these are subtle layers that are hallmarks of my firm's work. And though space-challenged, Mercedes finished the primary bath with the ultimate in discernment at every scale. The dolomite, brass, and onyx floral backsplash, and acrylic and brass drawer pulls. Soothing shades of sage dress this guest room. Textures, transparent forms, and reflective surfaces sit quietly. This narrow Italian brass sculptural object that someone said to me once that this is a headboard, I thought it would be a torture device if I used it that way. I set it actually atop a more head-friendly expanse of green boucle to create a comfortable headboard, which is on level with the exquisitely carved and gilded 18th century Stockholm clock. So through my long ago experience as an actor, I'm hoping, and I sense that I may have learned to listen. I comprehended and responded to her journey of self-reinvention, her need for Manhattan to reinvigorate, to re-inspire, and for her newly reimagined New York home to become a refuge and a source of calm. This has given her a practicality and a coherence to that crazy quilt of drama, eccentricity, flair, and brilliance that is both her life and Manhattan. This journey with my friend Michelle has been deeply satisfying, and I always thank her for that. Home. This is our home. So after 143 different viewings, I would never sign up to be Marshall Watson's real estate agent. Paul and I opened the door to this apartment on Manhattan's Upper West Side, and we knew that we had found it. Oh my gosh, home. And though only 750 square feet, it had abundant light, well-placed windows, and high ceilings. These are attributes that I always advise my clients to search for when they are looking for apartments. Two of the most memorable figures to be found in Belle Epoque New York social history commissioned this building. John Jacob Astor IV on the left and his son Vincent on the right, covertly, and as rumor has it, it has been proven, for the mistresses of their Upper East Side cronies. This building was completed in 1912, the same year that the Titanic went down, and unfortunately, John Jacob with it. And in its day, it was the creme de la creme of luxury. Though the building had fallen on extremely hard times, because you have to remember, this is the West Side. This is West Side Story. I was really eager to put to test the professional lessons that I'd absorbed up to that point. So with a slim budget, nascent skills, and borrowed furniture, that's a whole other story, I decorated the apartment. Well, 25 years later, after COVID, the moment arrived again to not only recommit to our New York home, but also to practice what I'd been preaching all these years. Leave no element, no matter how seemingly inconsequential, unconsidered. Welcoming, personal, livable. Comprehensive, intensively thought out scheme, as well as a feeling of naturalness, inevitability, and comfort, has always been my direction in defining elegance. And as the great proverb advises, happiness is not a place, but a direction. So clarifying the architecture is always my first approach. Understanding its original intent. And what can't be clarified, of course, then you decorate. But the three rooms needed to once again flow together via an axial enfilade. So by enlarging, raising, and recentering the portals, I transformed a multitude of secondary doors into discrete paneled jib doors. You'll see the jib door, over on the left there, it's slightly open. And I lacquered the entire room this brilliant white so to modernize and reflect. And once I had concealed the doors that created the visual noise, I brought attention to those doors that presented these dazzling architectural moments, notably the lavishly carved Marseille music room doors, as well as the leather-studded doors and the black lacquer doors. I drew attention to the European casement windows by lacquering them in an intense shade with these reassuringly muscular Common bolts. Our petite entry is loaded with impact. And of course, entries should be loaded with impact. Deep sapphire silk velvet walls, a Swedish gilt mirror and console, modern geometric marble inlaid floor, and a terracotta lion's head taken off the frieze of the old Waldorf Astoria simply launch the ship. Making connections via color, patterns, and silhouette remains the great unifier, infusing our home with peace and harmony. Repetition of creams, blues, natural wood tones, and the warmth of brass are throughout the apartment. The living room sofa was inspired by one of my great heroes, Billy Baldwin. This is, of course, his famous St. Thomas sofa, who indeed was also attributed to having designed these particularly gorgeous brass étagères to the right and left for Cole Porter's library in the Waldorf. Beneath the first folio Piranesi print resides the mahogany inlaid chest of drawers from my parents' home in Kansas City. Yes, I believe in brown wood furniture. And yes, you must teach your children its value and also how to use it. Proportion plays a leading role in designing a small space without compromising one's vision. I use the Regency rosewood center table as our dining table. My nickel and walnut coffee table over there on the right, along with the acrylic table, you'll see it tucked away behind the sofa over there on the right, finished with sympathetic classical details, kind of shake it up, adding this modern New York vibe without being obtrusive. And in our office, I designed the brass and wood classical lantern after searching for years for the perfect antique. I'll say I'm a little bit fussy. It hangs above the Regent's desk with beautiful carving. Look at that carving. Actually, when I was taking these pictures, it's not in this particular one, but I found that it was signed. And the gilded mirror, found at a house sale in Southampton, I always thought that it was actually probably from the late 19th century or early 20th century because the gilding was so new. And when we were When we were hanging it, we turned it over to put the chain on it, and my picture hanger said, "Marshall, look at this." And on the back was stamped, Stockholm, 1776. Lord, it was the best buy I ever got. And the mirror's iconography indicates happiness, prosperity, and honor. What more could I want? The neoclassic iron pediment I rescued from a demolition site on 6th Avenue, and I threw it in a checker cab. And as you know, there are no more checker cabs, so you know how long I've held on to it, until finding the perfect resting place. And once again, the repetition of material, the iron in the pediment, the iron in my grandfather's clock there on the desk, and the iron in the pedestal urns lend a cohesive visual glue to this small apartment. Strong silhouettes of 18th and 19th century antiques, restrained yet sumptuous in that period's finest materials, rosewood, satinwood, zebra wood, and mahogany, bind together in an architectural simplicity. The enveloping toile wraps the room and the curtains. You'll notice how this four-poster of my design actually enlarges a small room, canopied with 92 knife pleats. You might recognize this picture as it was the April issue on the cover of Veranda magazine. And here are the 92 knife pleats. I mean, once again, there are great workrooms. There are great craftsmen in this country. And we just need to support them. So I not only designed the bed and the bed canopy, but also the bedspread, the linens, and the pillows for luxurious comfort and ease. My grandmother's late 1700 Persian doors contrast beautifully with the wall upholstery and always remind me of her very chic style and her wicked sense of humor, which is always aimed at me. And I couldn't resist designing these magnificent English-inspired curtains, partially because I love the design, but also because my workroom was so talented. Countless details, brass buttons, rings, and finials, contrast felt, and tassels reminiscent of the Vendôme columns in Paris. By the way, I was quite taken. I didn't really tell you, but I was given free reign of this of Hillwood in the last day. And I was struck by some of the curtain treatments there. I mean, just amazing. And the tassels alone are worth the price of admission. So in the bath, the shaped slab marble rises from behind the sleek tub, tapering into shallow cabinets papered with images of classical orders. I always, in designing bathrooms, I always believe in shallow cabinets, because in the bathroom, most everything is actually quite small in diameter, and pills and that sort of thing. I don't want to reach back into the dark depths. And my memorable grandfather's violin hangs on the wall just outside the bath. And I find that the gentle curve of the instrument is mirrored in the shape of the marble, and of course, not accidentally. I style the diminutive kitchen as a butler's pantry, a Rubik's cube of practicality. It's only 8 feet by 10 feet. I lacquered it a deep Leland cypress green with contemporary brass handles that just shine like jewelry. My English arts and crafts gas lantern, suspended from the gold leaf ceiling, draws the light in and echoes the William Morris wallpaper of the same period. These are detailed links that I considered and I examined. And I also firmly believe that no home, no matter how high-key, is properly complete without the personal. My great-great-grandfather, Dr. Isaac M. Ridge, was Kansas City's first medical doctor. He cured the Pawnee and the Shawnee Indians, tended to Union and Confederate soldiers, and cured Brigham Young and the Mormons of their yellow fever by quarantining them onto an island in the middle of the Missouri River. They became very wealthy, actually. And my great-great-grandfather collected these dessert cups in Dresden when Germany, then known as Prussia, was still part of the Holy Roman Empire. They've been in my family that long. Well, after COVID, a renovation of our apartment represents our recommitment to a city that we both dearly love. We still treasure the theater and opera, the concert halls, and the museums. I walk the streets and the parks of the Upper West Side, and I feel the same pleasure I felt 2 generations ago, and even more perhaps, having shared so many years with so special a partner. And all of this infuses our restored apartment at long last, just as we'd pictured it. And it gives it vitality, comfort, and soul. Not a commodity nor a real estate venture, but home. Well, though I wasn't born with a fabric swatch or a drafting pencil in hand, once I popped out of the womb, I'm pretty sure that a pair of Felcos were forced upon me. Well, my father was obsessed by his weedless grass lawn, horseshoe-shaped privet hedges, and his award-winning roses, over 200 hybrid teas to be exact. Mother was president of the Kansas City Westport Garden Club, the GCA club, and she was in charge of the zone meeting. And many of you who are in the GCA or know about it know the panic and the importance of the zone meeting. She managed to coerce her 3 boys at that time into pinching scented geranium balls into topiary tree balls, and there was about 168 of them. And as soon as we were old enough to identify a dandelion, despite child labor laws, we were set to weeding, mowing, and pruning. And I'll tell you, we hated gardening. However, our parents' horticultural fervor was apparently tattooed onto our DNA. And all 3 boys, Tom on the left, Ridge in the center, and me, dove in head first, with, of course, a glass of wine. Ridge became an award-winning winemaker, cultivating over 80 verdant acres of vines in Carmel Valley. This is indeed his winery. And my brother Tom, who is the professional golfer, Tom Watson, has a thriving second career, designing broad fairways and digging treacherous sand traps. This is Cacique in South Carolina, one of my brother's favorites. He's currently working on several holes on Ballybunion, which is another one of his great courses if you all follow golf. And I, on the other hand, am really quite an amateur gardener, facing the same setbacks that we all face. With a compost pile and a trash bin that are testaments to my skills at murdering plants. Our second home in East Hampton sits on a long, narrow half-acre, high on a bluff looking over Gardiner's Bay, discovered by Paul after we'd sold our tiny cottage with overgrown gardens. All of our friends said that we had to move out of the cottage because the gardens had been so overgrown and just took over everything. And this virgin land, complete with every invasive known to man, had a wondrous magic all its own. When Paul told me that we better buy this property because this is where he wanted his ashes spread morbidly, well, I said, Paul, I guess the deal is kind of sealed here. I envisioned a sea captain's house overlooking the salty brine, a Sag Harbor-inspired Greek revival, peppered with federal details and an antebellum twist. I designed interiors that facilitated cross-ventilation, light, easy communication, and an emphasis on good proportion, comfort, and of course, elegance. Paul and I love our house, for which I served as both the architect and the interior designer. But if truth be told, I love the garden just as much. I find wisdom in the Chinese proverb that life begins the day you start the garden. Lessons that I've learned as an interior designer, of course, cross over to the out of doors. A room should always have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background, as does the garden. The foreground here is of California agapanthus. They were brought from California in the Delta Airlines overheads by my brother Ridge in black plastic bags. Yes, very good. You get an award, but not a free book. And these 50-foot-tall fastigiate American pin oaks that you see here acting as the middle ground were planted by Paul and me. And as I always said, it was amazing that our marriage lasted because these trees were quite large and we argued over the planting of them. And the background, if you look in the background, you'll see the Hikuro Nishiki willows, resplendent in their pink powder puff glory, and promised by Wayside Catalog to reach only 36 inches in diameter. Well, apparently they were planted in their happy spot. Look at those. Well, while indoors, texture remains of the utmost significance. In the garden, this lesson is paramount, especially as the season slips on. The rugged bark of Magnolia Solangia with the brick efflorescence and eternal snowballs of Mount Everest Eleum. Feathery Chianthus virginicus, many of you know is Jefferson's favorite shrub. It simply perfumes our garden in the spring. Muscular pollarded willow, you look at the top of there and see that it becomes a waterfall of texture in the summer. Autumn textures and winter textures. Color can electrify the interior, bringing unity, peace, and calm. And though I prefer color to find itself into the garden through the semi-permanence of leaf and needle color, my garden abounds with floral color. "25 varieties of hydrangea, 45,000 bulbs, crab apples, anemones, foxglove, of course with a glass of wine, lilies, allium, and roses, roses, and more roses. But once the pretty petals fall, there will always be the symphony of greens and, of course, structure. Structure. Now, interiors thrive when structure is well considered, balance, good proportion, and a successful architectural point of view. A dynamic combination of vertical, triangular, spherical, and horizontal lines prove additionally spectacular as the snow coats the structures. Here, gates, topiary, and Cleveland pear hedge only amplify the structure through the snow. And I returned from my travels here and abroad brimming with decorative ideas and influences. The French formality of Le Notre, the statuary of Italy, the topiary of Belgium, and the blousy abundance of the English border. And as a proud board member of the Garden Conservancy, where we preserve, share, and celebrate American gardens, founded to promote gardening and preserve private gardens, bringing them forward into the public sector. I've had the privilege of helping to sponsor our Open Days program. Many of you must know it. We're across this great land by seeing so many private gardens through the Garden Conservancy. I've been inspired by the walls of Charleston, the gates of Williamsburg, and the paths of the Adirondacks. Also, as in a home, my garden presents a narrative, which is a well-considered experiential unfolding. Gates open to the forecourt, the land's foyer, where we often welcome guests with cocktails and delicious stuffed figs. The forecourt is surrounded by the carriage house, draped in 5 varieties of wisteria and clematis. And the clematis are actually from my father's garden, Henry I, his favorite. There's also a shade garden overshadowed by a rare Cornus controversa variegata, which is one of my favorite trees, lemon leaf hydrangeas, and David Austin roses in Versailles boxes. And from there, my vegetable garden unfolds into a French potager, with a stair leading up to the belvedere, highlighted by a golden chain tree, wolf-eyes dogwood, and cut-leaf Japanese maples. And the belvedere affords you a view of the entire property and its layers. I'm very fortunate. My friend Blue Carrion has just this summer put out this book called The Gardens of the Hamptons. And I'm very fortunate that he selected my house to be the cover. Well, you swing open the gates to the walled garden with a glass of wine, and you pass by my autumn sunset roses. Now, if I can't kill them, you can't kill them. And soon the romance of the house and the long reflecting pool reveal themselves. And as you approach the front steps, you look back to see the American pin oaks dressed in their euonymus socks. And you might just catch me desperately pruning a boxwood before dinner. Well, leaving the walled garden, designed to keep that little critter on the left out, isn't that an amazing photo? My friend Gail caught this. I think it's amazing. But then the seaside garden, ravaged by salt, wind, and the marauding deer, breathtakingly spreads out before you. We frequently entertain on the porch in inclement weather, but by setting a stone table at the edge of the bluff, overlooking our native plant garden that tumbles down the bluff, and carefully timing the evening, we can treat our guests, if we're cautious and careful and know the timing, to the occasional moonrise. Well, I've learned as well that there are significant differences between interior and exterior design, of course, because I can perfect a home and I can depart knowing that what I've created mightn't change, while the garden remains forever mutable, the slowest of the performing arts. And wisely said by Thomas Church, unlike people, gardens never strive for perpetual youth. They want to look old from the day they were born. Good gardening, like good interior design, requires a constant state of creativity, flexibility, experimentation, and discovery, not just regarding design, but of course about oneself. I have discovered that through years of trial and error, that I still embrace these principles that transform rooms and gardens into the definition of elegance. Warmth, light, peace, balance, proportion, romance, livability, and harmony. Elegance, like a garden, can be cultivated by living a more civilized life, where there is enough time in the day for a more gracious, polite exchange, where cordiality, generosity, respect, and kindness, like the garden, can all bear fruit. I will always aspire to create homes that are uplifting as well as comfortable. And I'm certain you can see that these 3 dogs are comfortable. No one ever believes me, but that really is where they always sit. And I aspire to create homes that are graceful, as well as high-functioning, and coherent, as well as appropriate. You see, this is what I cultivate. And this is my art of defining elegance. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We have time for a few questions.
Yeah, so I have the mic. So please raise your hand if you have any questions, and I'll bring the mic to you.
In the apartment? You saw where it was. It was in a wonderful 18th century. It was an 18th century armoire that was there, sitting there. It was the one that had zebra wood on it. It was beautiful, and it's very narrow too. I mean, it's only this big. It's always about my job is where do I put the goddamn TV and how do I hide it? You know. It's always I really want to, I want to write a book about it because I've done so many different ways. I mean, I've literally buried buried in that house in California that I showed you, we buried the television in the ground so that it could rise up out of the back bookcases of the behind the sofa and then turn. Oh, wow. Okay. But don't get me on it. Rizzoli wouldn't do it. Okay. Any more questions?
Yes, I have a question. What is your view on color? Like just general, you have a lot of blues and tans and antique colors.
Well, here I've shown you quite a bit, but I mean, the wonderful thing about the world right now is I think we're out of our beige period, the bland leading the bland. I think we're into color again. I think when you see the magazines, you will see that all the younger designers are it's explosive in color, and the showrooms are exploding in color right now too. Sometimes it's a little much, but color is it. It's huge right now.
We have a question from Zoom. Someone wanted to know what your thoughts on antiques are. Are they a thing of the past? Do they still have relevance?
Yeah, I shake my head. They always have relevance. They are what, and for those of the younger generations, it's recycling, right? It's using, and these things are, and you know, you can't compare those 18th century antiques, handmade with the most beautiful woods of the period. You can't compare them with restoration hardware, you know, where they stuff the furniture with newspapers from China. I've had to recover them, and that's what I found. Okay, so I'm sorry. You want me on my soapbox anymore? No, I believe in antiques, and I believe in using everything from our past. There's so many great cabinets and furniture that has been created. 1950s, all the retro work. I love using any of that and all of it, and it gives a room character and warmth and an individual, and it also gives the owners and myself a chance for the hunt and for something to find something that really means something to you, not a duplicate of a replicate of some kind of, you know, as a great old friend of mine from Kansas City, she was always drunk. She used to say, "It makes my teeth grind." Oh, you know, we are over time. I'm sure. I'll be signing books and think. Oh, okay. Yes.
Thank you very much. This has been such a treat. How do you deal with a client who just has terrible taste? Like, what do you focus on as central tenets to any design that you
No
do?
client has terrible taste. Really. You know, you hire a designer because I have many tools in my toolbox to find out. And that's what I'm saying in all of this. My job is to find out what you know, the things that make you sing, the things that will make your home your home. And that's the exciting part of it. Otherwise, I would have just been an artist and just painted my own paintings, what I ever wanted. I wanted to interpret through people, and that's what's interesting to me. And so I believe everybody has taste. They just don't, it hasn't been revealed yet. And I help them reveal it.
Let's
Okay,
please give a
you all.
huge
Thank
round
you
of
so
applause
much.
for Marshall Watson.
You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you. And I'll be signing books. They're great Valentine's presents. Thank you all.